DI5, discussion city manager code and building procedures enforcement.
That's correct. We're going to start with that, and I'm going to
DI4.
mix just a little bit of the DI4 into that one.
All right, so for the record, we're taking up DI4, DI5. Commissioner Carollo, you have the floor.
Thank you. If I may ask the administration if we have someone from the building department that's here, the highest official.
We do,
in the house. Okay, who would that be, sir?
So we've got Maurice Pond.
Okay. Could I ask if Maurice would come up?
Sure.
Thank you.
Just a moment. Once again, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Maurice Pons, Deputy Director of the Building Department.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, sir, this got nothing to do with you or any employee that I would ask to come up here to try to get some information on the record. That's all that I'm trying to get is information on the record on procedures and how things are done. So let me begin. From the building department, when you guys do all the applications, right, for permits and what have you?
Yes, the building department receives all building applications and processes them and does
Right.
the archiving.
What, for individuals that have had a shed that they did for whatever reason, not knowing or knowing, because they didn't think maybe they needed a permit or they just didn't want to bother, whatever the case is, that an individual that, or individuals that have built a shed in their backyard, some minor stuff that they built in their backyards, maybe that built some wooden chairs, maybe some decks or whatever. If they are trying to legalize it, what would be the process that they would have to follow in order to legalize it?
If if a property owner, homeowner, or business owner has done work without a permit and would want to legalize it, he submits hires an architect or an engineer to submit an as-built.
You submit
an as-built on how the methodology that the shed was built and to legalize it.
Yeah, but what is the permit, the process then you would have to go through and get for that?
He would need
What is it
to
called?
hire an architect engineer that would do an as-built, drawings of the shed with calculations, and submit a building permit application to the building department. The staff.
So they would have to hire an engineer and an architect?
If it is a shed with a roof, yes, because it would need calculations.
If it would be benches, large wood decks.
If it would be benches, concrete slab, some type of anything that's on the surface, no, it would not need calculations or wind calculations.
What would it need?
It would need a drawing on how he built it, how it was assembled, and submitted to the building department, and also would be reviewed by the zoning and public works department to comply with city ordinance.
So it would be drawings, you said, on how it was built.
On how it was built, yes.
What else?
Show a site plan on the locations, showing
Site
setbacks.
Site plans with setbacks, right?
With setbacks, yes.
Okay. What else?
That's with the application, and that's what will be required.
On that kind of application, since it's after the fact, do they have to pay more then?
If the person comes to the building department and it's after the fact, and they were not gotten a violation, it would be it would not be double fee plus 100, which it is when somebody does work without a proper permit.
But my question is, and I'm not sure we're talking the same thing. If it was built without permits, and then they come in to try to legalize it, I'm not sure what is called the permits that they have to get. Is it after the fact permit? Is that it?
It would be an after the fact permit. In the case you mentioned about a shed, it would be an after the fact permit
So
for the construction of a shed.
But so it would. Is that what you guys call it, after the fact permit?
It would be, excuse me?
Is that what you all called it?
It would be an after the fact permit, and in the plans it would show as built.
It would show has built. And how would the plans show that it's has built?
The engineer would say the as built conditions of the shed of a shed in the rear of the house, for example.
Okay. The same would be for benches, for decks, etc.
Like a deck, concrete slab, it could be drawn. It would not require for a residence. It would not require an engineer. If it was in a commercial project, it would require an architect or an engineer to submit.
Okay, so for a residential,
It would not be required.
Okay,
If it's a homeowner, it would not be required. Our engineering.
That's why I kept asking you that, because I somehow didn't think that it would require all that. But it would require drawings. He said how it was built, side plans to show the setback.
Yes.
And can an owner do that himself, or does he have to?
If it is his homestead where he resides,
Right.
Yes.
So that is something also that I was under the impression, but I want to get
Not
it.
on an investment property, but if it's where the property owner resides, yes.
So it's after the fact permit is called.
It would be an after the fact if it was built and he's legalized.
The side plans, or you have to show some kind of sketch or survey of the property, right?
You would have to show a site plan with the location of where, let's say, if it's an existing house and where the shed is located, showing the setbacks of the shed.
Okay. When you say site plan, is that like a survey or something?
That most commonly would be a survey, yes.
Okay. Most commonly. How old can the survey be, or the site plan, or whatever it's called?
If it is for a slab, a bench, which would most likely not require a permit.
Or decks?
If it would be decks, as per the building department, we're not going to ask for a recent survey, because a survey for a homeowners costs them $350 to $500. But zoning might ask them for a more updated survey to see if there's any other illegal structures in the property.
But let me ask you this. Hold on. Isn't there something that we have that, I believe here it is, 7.1.3 application review process. And in number 3, it says legal description and a certified land survey of the proposed site boundaries. The survey shall be performed in accordance, etc., and dated with 1 year preceding the filing of the application. Is that correct? What has to be or not?
Yes, but that would be more of a zoning review.
Zoning would have to review.
Zoning would have to review reviews any application for.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that in your department, you're not going to review that because that would fall It's zoning to do.
for setbacks reasons.
Yeah, for setback reasons.
Yes, we will review for Florida building code compliance.
Okay, but zoning would have to do it for setback reasons. They would need
If
survey.
that job category requires a zoning review.
So, deck, benches, shed, it would require a zoning review of a survey that, as it says here, shall be dated within 1 year. Sketch.
Yes.
So 1 year
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yes, that you're reading that from city ordinance.
Yeah, and it falls in zoning, not in you guys to do it.
We will review for building code compliance.
The zoning review. All right. What has been your experience when someone applies for a permit for after the fact or for repairs? How long does it usually take through the system for a residential property?
It all depends. We have a homeowner's assistance staff that once a homeowner comes in to legalize, we'll walk them, the staff member of the building department will assist them in what documents they would need to bring and assist them also in trying to expedite their permitting process.
Can you do it all in less than an hour and a half?
Can we do it in all less than an hour and a half? It would depend on the job type and what permit is going to be issued.
It would be very difficult. Right?
A shed would not be done in an hour and a half.
Anything that you could think of that could be done so quickly that would go through 6 departments in an hour and a half?
That would be very, very, that would be a quick homeowner permit, yes.
Unusual, right?
6 departments, yes, unless it was done electronically, maybe.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you. I appreciate your time. See if I get one of my staff members to show something quickly up here.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If you all notice this picture here, and we've made sure that the address has been taken out, that it would be next to impossible for anybody to know where this address would be at. You notice that right above the little red balloon, there's like a rooftop display, and where the red balloon is, it's all full of foliage, where you can't see anything there. We could move on now to the next picture. As you can see, between the year 2006 sometime and the year 2008 sometime, a big chunk of that foliage that you couldn't see anything except the gray roof that you see now right above the balloon is gone, And you can see now that there was a deck that the foliage was hiding. That's where the two red arrows are pointing to, that deck. The single arrow is pointing to a crater in the ground that it's apparent where a stump was ground from a tree that disappeared from there. It's a sizable area that disappeared from that tree. Also, if you look towards the extreme left as you look in the photo, there's a very large royal palm, and in the back of the royal palm you see what appears to be another royal palm coming out. That this palm here, this royal palm, seems so old that it could be from seeds from the older tree that Emilio started growing at some point. And you see the whole foliage that's towards the back that you still have, even though we lost all the foliage that was covering that whole deck area. Go to the next picture, please. Now you see that the small deck between the years 2008 and 2009 that you had seen before disappeared. The crater that was left there when that tree was taken down disappeared because there's a 24 by 24 foot deck that was built in that back part where it's all covered. You also see towards the back that all that foliage that you had, either additional trees were taken out or more than 50% was cut down. Don't appear that you have any royal palm like the one that we saw in 2008 any longer, nor the what appear to be another smaller royal palm coming out of the back. And you see two palms that don't appear that they were there before. Could have been, but don't appear to. Might have been put in after everything else was taken out. But what's clear is that there's a huge amount, several thousand square feet of foliage that has disappeared. Big chunk of foliage. And you see that you have a brand new 24 by 24 deck that's there. Let me go where I'm heading to all this. If you could put the first out of the two sketches surveys that we have, the one with the smaller deck, I don't know if you could go higher more so that the deck could be seen as not being seen here. Maybe if it could be expanded a little more where the deck area is, but you got to go higher a little more. Okay. You see that there's it's a small deck towards the back of this drawing of this house that says wood deck. That's the one that you saw in the photos before. that originally was being covered totally by some large tree and its foliage. After it was cut down, you saw the small deck, and then small time after, a year and a half or two, there appeared a full 24 by 24. This deck is approximately 10 by 8 or so. But after this small deck was taken out, there was a full 24 by 24 deck back here that covered the crater where the tree was cut, and that you saw, and I pointed out, as the brand new deck that you saw up there. Now, this plan or survey was presented to the city of Miami in March 11th, 1999, or at least it's got the date of March 11th, 1999, and was presented in March or sometime to the city. And it was presented to the city some little over 20 years ago, because the owner of this place wanted, at the time, 20 years ago, wanted to put a chain link fence. I believe it was a 4-foot chain link fence. And this was presented to the city. Now, let's go to the next one. This here is the same exact, but for one thing that was changed. In survey, plan survey of more than 20 years ago. And what's presented to the city with the following changes. Where you saw before the 8 by 10 deck approximately, that was whited out. And you had someone draw in a full deck that's 24 by 24 in here. So you could see that someone changed what was there to give the impression that this is a deck that was there over 20 years ago, not the original one that you saw. And as the building assistant director, is that your title, or deputy director? Well, assistant director, deputy director, stated, you need a survey plan that's at least a year old. And I read what our code said, that zoning at least, not building, but at least zoning, he stated, must review it for setbacks, site plans, etc., and the drawings of how it was built. Now, you have a forged survey here that was forged 20 years after to the city. The city accepted this. Yeah? Everybody else has to provide one within 1 year old, but somebody decided that whoever presented this was important enough that he didn't have to follow the procedure that everybody else has to follow. And they could have handed in a survey that was even there before the individual that owns this property now owned the property. And no problem. The city would accept it without any reviews whatsoever.
Question, Commissioner, just for clarification.
Yes.
The accusation of a forgery of a survey, is the survey meant to depict what is there on site at the time, or historically go back and show what was there originally approved? Because if a deck was there and the survey shows the new deck, there is no misrepresentation.
There is, because you've shown a survey that goes from, it's got the date and everything, from March 11, 99, and he says that it was for a chain link fence. And you're just changing that without providing anything that talks about what would be needed. Drawing on how it was built, the site plan with setbacks and so on, as was stated here, then that could only have been changed for one purpose and one purpose only, to give the impression that that's what was there some 20 plus years ago. Because the permit that was presented to the city on this was not a permit for, as you heard the deputy zoning director state, it was not an after-the-fact permit that would show that you had something there that did not have a permit. It was presented under oath as a permit to repair a deck. The application said $2,000. When they got the permit, it was down to $1,500 that they claimed that it was going to cost them. So you're claiming that you're only providing that not to legalize it, because it never had a permit, but to make a repair. And what was being done here is that someone was trying to hide the fact, and I don't know why, that they put in a deck there without a permit, so that they wouldn't have to get it right by saying that, by presenting rather, a permit after the fact.
So you're saying that the deck depicted in this survey we're looking at, the March 11th, 99,
Yes.
does not match the reality of the deck that was there in March of 99.
Exactly, as I pointed out. You saw the first survey, the real one of what was there in 99, and this was certainly not there in 99. And how the individual got a hold of this was by having someone go through the city archives and finding that survey of over 20 years back.
Now, Commissioner, just for process and liability as well, to be careful here, I want to make sure this body is not seeking to target an individual, but rather study the process of a department. Because if there is inappropriate approvals being given in a department, I definitely believe that's fair game for this dais.
Well,
But if we're targeting an individual, I really want to tread lightly here, because
I'm here for the second reason of what you stated. Okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if we're going to talk about targeting, you're looking at a guy who's been targeted in numerous ways. Now, not just me, but other members of my family.
So the intention of this is not to disclose who owns this home, but really to
Well,
go through the process.
the intention of this is to lay out all the facts of what's happened here that this commission needs to know. Because if it was you, if it was me, if it was any of us, we would be hung from the highest tree in this. Now, let me go further. You heard the deputy director of zoning also state that it would be very unusual. And I think he was being very conservative and cautious for someone to get all the permits within an hour and 30 minutes. In fact, in one day, through 6 different departments that had to go through this, 6 in the city: building, public works, development and roadway plans, floodplain, structural, and zoning. All these departments, somebody walked it through, and permits were given in an hour and 23 minutes. An hour and 23 minutes. Now, I dare anyone to find me, anyone in this city, unless they are super connected, that could get a permit for anything in this short time. It just doesn't happen. Now, the application that was made on this building permit application, had to be signed under oath, and he was. And right at the top it says, permit holder and owner, that under the penalty of perjury, I declare that the information contained in this permit application is accurate. The permit application includes the site maps, surveys, etc., that have been given. That's part of what they're signing that is true. As you can see here, changing what was there in 1999 into this year, 20 years later, that's not being truthful whatsoever. It says more, but I think it suffices with what I brought out. Let me also read to you the possible laws that could have been violated here. False official statement, statute 837.06. Whoever knowingly makes a false statement in writing with the intent to mislead a public servant in the performance of his or her official duty shall be guilty of a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree, punishable as provided. Statute 831.02, uttering forged instruments. Possibly, there could be a violation here too. Whoever utters and publishes as true a false, forged, or altered record, deed, instrument, or other written mentioned in 831.01, knowing the same to be false, altered, forged, or counterfeited with the intent to injure or defraud any person, city employees or persons, shall be guilty, etc. Do you think that I would be sitting up here if this was me? I doubt it very much. Now, what has happened here has been direct abuse of power. The application that was submitted to the building department was submitted on May 15th of this year. It was processed. One more question that I do have for you, Mr. Deputy Director. The processing place that you have in the city there that people go to, what time does it close?
What time could you
Up
apply?
until what time can a resident go to apply for a permit?
Our business hours are from 7:30 to 4:30, but a person could apply for a permit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because our applications are all online.
Okay, so the business center that you have there,
The homeowner's assistance is
it's open until,
from 7:30 all the way to 3:30. If a homeowner shows up at 4 o'clock and the gentleman's there, he will attend to them.
but now you changed it on me. You said 4:30, now you said 3:30, but the help, what is the official time?
7:30 to 4:30.
That's the official time.
Staff leaves at 4:30.
Okay. All right, that's what I want to get.
Thank you.
Do you have supervisors that are there?
Every section of the building department has a supervisor, yes.
But who are the supervisors that supervise that section that's under you guys?
For the permit counter,
Yeah.
Deborah Fagan.
Okay. Is Deborah sitting there all the time?
The supervisor, she leaves over after 5:30.
But does she sit there, or does she have other people at
No,
work?
there's a clerk that attends to.
Excuse me?
There's a clerk
Right.
that attends to any homeowner that comes in that needs assistance.
Okay.
If that person needs to go to the person's house to get the application to
Right.
assist them,
Right.
he will also.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So Deborah doesn't sit there. She doesn't take the applications herself.
No, she doesn't.
She's at another location.
She attends the public once that needs her assistance at her level.
Okay, so when someone comes, a regular resident, to the clerk that's sitting there, they filled out their application. Once it's put through the computer, it's the clerk there that does it, right?
Once the application is accepted, it is scanned. It goes to the permit coordinators. Once those documents are accepted, it goes to each of the disciplines: zoning, public works,
but
building.
you're talking about.
I'm just going through the process.
I'm just saying the first process.
Yes.
Once they come in and hand in an application for a permit, for a building permit, to the clerk that's sitting there, is she the one that puts it through the file?
No, that clerk will scan it and send it to the permit coordinators, which will send it to the staff members that are going to review.
The following day or whatever?
Sometimes they're reviewed the same day if they're small permits.
Okay. So she puts it through, in other words, the first time in that, whereas it would say that the application was created with a time and date, that would be with the clerk for them, right?
That would be done it could be done with the kiosk, which are outside, or it could be done with the assistance of the permit coordinator.
Right. Either one.
Either one.
But does Deborah get involved in a lot of that or not?
No.
What did you say her name was?
She is a supervisor. She supervises the permitting section.
Normally, that's not what she does. She supervises.
She supervises. Yes.
Okay. All right. The application shown that it was put in at 3:53 in the afternoon, 3:53.09 p.m. in the afternoon. I believe that what it shows is that Deborah handled it, so confirmed that she doesn't sit in any of these places. So it must have been someone that she took an interest in, or it was just sent to Deborah in wherever she was at in the city. Then the very next day, because this was practically at the point that you say that the city closes, so the next day, in the morning, beginning in the morning, is when this whole application process went through, and it took the hour and 23 minutes that I mentioned before for it to get approved from all the departments. Approved it. The very next day, after it was handed in, close to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, beginning, I believe, around 10:39 in the morning. Went through 6 departments, and the final approval, I believe, showed at 12:02 p.m. The next day. Now, the application is notarized by Ofelia Perez. She's a city employee. She, I don't know what her exact title is, but I believe is some kind of an administrative assistant in the city. Can you help me, Joe? What is her title?
She's the administrative assistant in the city.
She's an administrative assistant?
Administrative assistant, yes.
So she's an administrative assistant that was the one that notarized this under oath. The person that she notarized was her city manager. Now, I'm not blaming any employee. Haven't overlooked all the processes that you yourself stated here that we have to follow, and there are probably more. But first of all, when a city manager, or any of us, is applying for something that's personal, such as this, it's not related to our city position. This is totally wrong to use a city employee to notarize anything. This explains to me clearly why the very next day it took only an hour and 23 minutes and nobody checked off anything whatsoever. Everybody said review unnecessary, review unnecessary, review unnecessary, review unnecessary. Approve, approve. I'm not blaming any of these employees, but if this is not a clear-cut case of abuse of power, I really don't know what it is. When something is handed into the city that is false, and then nobody looks for permits, for anything, just approve, 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 approve. Just because they're the city manager doesn't make it right. If I would have done that, any of my colleagues here would have done that, I would expect nothing less than what I'm saying here. I would have never have done something of that nature. And certainly, I would never get something done in an hour and 23 minutes through 6 departments. But this is not the first time that the manager has wanted to take Council, you're done, sir. I'm sorry. And I thank you for your statements. And I want to be clear on the record. I don't have any problems with you or with any of the employees involved in this. I have to believe they were under duress and probably told to sign off on all this without looking at it, without having all the required surveys, etc., that is required by our city. I remember, you can go, you don't have to be there, I don't, thank you. One of the first eye-openers for me with how the manager operated was early on. And let me go briefly and state how the position of city manager was created in America. It was created, city manager was created because there was a time in our country's history that politics got so immense in cities across our country that you needed a professional that was going to steer away from it and run the city professionally. So the concept of a professional city manager was created in America, and to this day, still a majority of American cities have city managers. And you have city managers precisely to have a professional that's going to run your city, going to steer your city away from the politics. They're going to do their job professionally, no matter which of the politicians are sitting at that time. And that was the reason, the concept behind it. What I saw from early on, and haven't stopped seeing to this day, is that instead of a city manager, we have a politician in that position. Our city is being run by tweets, by the fake interviews, press conference. Our manager acts, behaves like a politician, not as a professional city manager. My first experience with him was within a short time that he came. I was given the heads up through the police chief's office that there was going to be a press conference early that morning. I think it was at 8:30 in Little Havana on a drug house that was going to be knocked down. When I got there, to my surprise, I found our then communications director, an assistant to the manager, and the manager. They were there for the press conference. I never had been informed, never was informed by the manager, like I should have been, and every one of the elected officials should have been, if that was their district and this was being done. And it was a press conference that was being made for the manager. And he barely had gotten here, a month and a half or so. After that, orders apparently were given to the city police department not to share anything with me. And soon after, exactly what happened. Things of that nature were no longer shared with me. And I can assure you that I have ample evidence that the police department was trying to work with me in the district at that time in trying to clean up drug problems in other areas and to provide me information. Let me go through areas that, if we remember a couple of meetings ago, I publicly complained right from this dais that there had been, on November 16th, an activity from an organization that since I've been back, I've worked with, I helped them put their board of directors in Jose Marti Park, and they were having an event on November 16th, and I was informed nothing about it. Before, this organization worked with me wonderfully. All of a sudden, nothing was being told to me of the event that was happening. Others knew about it. The administration knew about it. At that date, the manager stated he was sorry, that it would not happen again. Sure enough, it did happen again. An event was scheduled that we found out sometime last week, I believe, for December the 14th again, by the same organization. I believe it's finally been canceled. Week last, there's the whole fanfare of a very important press conference in the police department for a safe December, I think it was called. I don't know when all of my colleagues were notified in that. I wasn't notified until sometime in mid-afternoon, much less than 24 hours before the press conference was happening. I assure you, the police department knew well beforehand that they were going to plan to do a press conference. You just don't do that kind of thing, that you're going to have a press conference of that nature, and the administration doesn't care if elected officials are the last to be told. Obviously, I had conflicts that with such short notice I couldn't change to have been there. They would have liked. Because I will say this to you, if many parts of my district, like many parts of my colleagues' district, aren't safe today, I want to know how we're going to make December safe, but more than that, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, until next December again. I got parts of my district that all of a sudden are being overrun by drug traffickers. Even old people riding bicycles that are working for drug gangs. A couple, were arrested. Out of the two, one took me to stand out there and catch a crack hooker, give with her hand like this to an old guy a little plastic bag that had white substance that I saw. And thank God that we had two good cops that were walking the beat, and I contacted one of my staffs that had been there with me. He knew their number. He called them. They came back, and they found the guy with a crack pipe behind the Tire Theater, ready to smoke it already. You shouldn't take a commission. You have to be out there like that and exposing himself. When I live only one block from that area, and I certainly don't have all kinds of security to protect me. No fence in the house that I live in or anything else. I'm in a position that I'm concerned of even calling higher ups in the police department, or who we call, or me calling directly to try to protect my residents, because with this administration, it could be turned around and I'll be accused of giving orders against the charter, which I would never do. I ask questions. I have had to endure up here seeing how city employees have been allowed by the manager to come up and insult elected officials. And the manager didn't care. They violated city rules and regulations. The manager didn't care because he was happy with what happened. Since last year, I had a merchant, an individual that fabricates statues. The individual was willing to donate to the city of Miami a spectacular Lady Liberty in a stall, about 25 foot tall. On top of that, four very large stands with the statues of George Washington, Lincoln, Marti, Believer, and a huge bench that was fully made with tiles from Spain with the city seal. I couldn't get any cooperation from the city administration to bring it in, and since they have to be the ones that install it and get permits, I finally came up here and I brought it up at a meeting. I'm still waiting for that. When I'm contacted some months back by a new trustee of Miami-Dade Community College, and I am told that our manager has been in touch with him, is very interested in the position of president of Miami-Dade College. Of course, he's trying to apply through the back door, not the front door. And I'm told that when I ask, well, why does he want to leave? When he has an excellent job here that probably pays him between salary and benefits $350,000, the answer to me was because he couldn't take anymore, he told me, he says, working for the mayor. Well, none of us might be a cup of sugar, but I certainly don't believe that any of us are that harsh for that. He has berated other members of his body to others. Through this budget process, it took members of this commission to point out that we needed, and we pushed to find it in the budget, this commission, more police motorcycles, to assure that we were going to have more code enforcement officers for compliance, to assure that we were going to have a lot more cameras for solid waste for all the illegal dumping that's being done through our city. At no time did these initiatives come from where it should have. Our administration. Most of all, really find it difficult to keep seeing that we have had a manager that feels that he doesn't have to be accountable to his bosses that all are up here. Surely the majority of us here that feels that he could do whatever without advising us if he's going to fly away, be out of town. He decides that a couple of meetings ago that he wanted to be in Tallahassee instead of being here at a meeting. And he's doing that because he feels that at no time will there be enough of this body to unite, to take the appropriate actions. I could go on and on and on in what is wrong with the manager and his administration, not the least of how he's used it to when he disagrees with people here or doesn't like when some of us disagree with him on how to try to use tactics and individuals to smear us, like he tried to do with me when he created this whole brouhaha of stolen valor, that I had claimed to be a Marine, and I never was a Marine. When he's the one that created all that, he had asked me a year and a half earlier, in a private conversation, if I had been in the military. And I told him I had been in the inactive Marine Reserve, which was true. Without ever asking me, he took other steps to get the mayor to issue some kind of salute or I don't know what to me. And then, knowing that I was never a veteran, he purposely got up at a city gathering to introduce me as a veteran of the Marine Corps when he knew that was not true. And that was all part of a campaign to then try to smear me. Right during that time, he was caught giving records that he thought were going to harm me to a reporter without following the process that he knows has to be followed in this city and should be followed by all of us, going through the city attorney's office so that the city attorney's office could see what is truly a public record, what's not, what might have to be deleted or not, and many other factors that involve the request of public records. When the reporter was confronted with that, because they didn't know that I knew, but I had gotten a copy of the email that he sent the reporter very early Monday morning. The reporter stated to me in front of some of my staff members that he had not asked for any verbal public records. Not only until 2 hours and 20 minutes later did the reporter had a refresher of his memory. And he said, oh yeah, I did. I asked him for that. But even if he truly had asked him for that, procedure wasn't followed. It should be followed in the city. And you would have thought that the guy that we have to trust the most in the city, that runs the city, that we're his bosses, would at least have the courtesy of saying, listen, this was asked. But he didn't, because he was part of the conspiracy to harm me with that. And that came out like a dud, like all the other things that he tried. But this is not about just what he's done to me, it's the least of it. It's about the way that he has behaved with all my colleagues up here, the true lack of respect for the people that are his bosses. The fact that he feels that he is accountable not to this body, that you have foreign dignitaries. He's the Secretary of State for the city of Miami. He runs to see them. You would at least expect the mayor and commissioners to always be notified. I was a city manager one time in my life, and I know the job and duties of a city manager, and I also know the hours that a city manager has to put in. When I was city manager in Doral, a small city, very small compared to Miami, I can assure you that there was no week that I put less than 60 hours in that job, because it requires it. Our manager, I don't think, has had a week that he's had a full 40 hours. I'm going to give you more or less how his usual day is. He has a police sergeant of arms that picks him up anywhere from 8:25, 8:30, it varies a little bit. They take him to the MRC. Most of the times, with the exception when he's taking lunch with friends or people that he wants to promote himself with us paying the bill in restaurants that most Miamians cannot afford or go to, he has the sergeant of arms, takes him home, where he'll spend an hour and a half or so. Then they take him back to the city. Then he usually comes home sometime between 4, 4:12, 4:15. On a long day, it's maybe 4:30. On a long day. Now, if somebody doesn't believe me, let's use the subpoena power of this commission on a lot of what I said and start subpoenaing the sergeant of arms, all of them, in their records, where they were, what they did, and you're going to find that what I've said is accurate. Because frankly, I'm not the only one that's headed up to here and fed up with what I've seen. There's abuse from A to Z, not just in the information that I show you on the permits on his home. One of the most outrageous things that I could bring out that he's done absolutely nothing on is the reports that came out recently from the CIP, the report that will be coming, I think, next week to the public, but he has had all the internal information from our internal auditor on the off-duty work in the police department, where a tremendous amount of the off-duty work is all being done in cash. Yes, cash. Where police officers are not paying Medicaid, Social Security, like the law requires. And I think we all know what the consequence of that is. And I don't mind being attacked for it now, because we cannot have a police department where officers are being paid in cash, whether by bars, lounges, or others, where they're going to own these officers, and they're not going to be our officers any longer. Besides all that I read from the CIP and the information that I've been able to get so far before their final report from the internal auditor, I had the opportunity to speak to one business owner in our city. And this is what he said to me. on the cash off-duty. He called to hire an off-duty officer, not because he felt he really needed it, but he wanted it from protection from the other establishments around him that were hiring off-duty officers, so they wouldn't use them to stick him out as a competitor. He says that to this day, he has not been given a single social security number, address, information for any of the officers that have been sent to him. But most of all, he told me that when he called to ask for the off-duty officer, the officer that came to see him, because the city is divided, as one member of the FOP told me recently, in my office, with two of my staff members present, he said he had been paid cash one time and he felt dirty. He said that our city is being divided into sectors, like the mafia in New York, on all these off-duty jobs. And it's not being done even. The allegations in the CIP, the allegations that are coming from the Auditor General, is that there are all kinds of additional violations. But what this individual, going back to him, told me that when he called to have an off-duty officer, an officer came and told him, we will provide you one, only if you pay cash. You gotta pay cash. All this information, and much more, I'm sure, because he's the manager, our manager knows. Done nothing about it. To me, a job is not that important, no matter what they will pay me, over a principle and in doing what I know is right from wrong. I could go on and on, but I think I, frankly, have said sufficient. We could either make a professional decision, or we could keep playing politics and going along with it. But today, I am going to make a professional decision for the betterment of the city and make a motion to dismiss the city manager.
There's a motion to remove the city manager. Is there a second?
Yes.
The motion has been moved and seconded.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Reyes.
I also want to explain why I think that we need to change direction.
Is your microphone?
Yes, it is on.
Thank you.
Since the first day that I got here, when I started requesting and giving directives, and they have been, most of the times have been ignored, or they have accomplished, and they have acted as if they have done it. The consequence that all of those things I have to, in all honesty, say, and that I don't trust the city manager. I lost the trust on the city manager. And I have that given directed of requesting full efficiency study of the city and its defining by a third party with proper methodology. I received as a fait accompli of a report that it was done in-house without any description on what methodology was used. One thing that was very important to me, as well as Commissioner Carollo, when we first got here, we gave the directive to create a housing authority, and instead the administration provided a report and went ahead and gave responsibility to the community development. We wanted to have meetings and workshops, and we have a little meeting here. That was it. Every time that I asked about the housing authority, he said, "No, wait a minute." You say, "Well, we decided to include, instead of a housing authority, a housing department, but our directive was a housing authority." The lack of communication has been incredible. You see, it is very sad for a commissioner to find things that are going to happen in the city of Miami through the paper. See, there have been issues presented in the city of Miami that the Miami Herald has printed it before we have been informed. Also, there is a constant absence in all the meetings, particularly in the meetings that I have when agenda prep, and I am dealing all the time with Mr. Napoli, which, in my opinion, he is doing it very professional, and that's the person that I need. I don't understand why, if you are happy with your job, you start going around town looking for another job. It is incredible that this happened. And what really topped it out is that I have requested information, and I only been able to obtain it when we have filed a public record request. Even the Miami Herald said that is inconceivable that a commissioner has to have to go that route. You see, I think that we should change direction, and I think it's for the best of the city. And also, I really hope that our next city manager doesn't have any outside job. It is not working for another company. Commissioner Carollo asked him once that you will have another job. He said yes, as a consultant to some companies. See, but we don't get any report on that. We never authorize that or anything. So that's the reason that I am second this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to open the dais for discussion. Does anyone else? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I have to say that I think this entire conversation is inappropriate. The manager is not here today. He is attending to his wife, who is ill. And I think the appropriate way to handle something like this, if there were issues related to the manager, is to wait until the manager's here. So that's just on a procedural level. If issues that any of you have with the manager or with me, frankly, you have every right to express those issues, and you can express them at any meeting, at any time. And certainly, there's always room for improvement. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, you're in a government, and government is, in and of itself is difficult and can be difficult at times to reform. But I would urge this commission to look at some of our statistics, which I think demonstrate that this administration, the team that we put together in this administration, has been an excellent team. We have the lowest homicide rate in 51 years, my first year as mayor. The first year that our manager was the city manager. This year, I don't want to jinx the chief, we're still below that number with a little less than 20 days to go in the year, and certainly we're hoping and praying that we do come in below that number. We have, as you know, because you all voted on it, the second lowest tax rate in 55 years, 10.5% growth, $3 billion in new construction that we processed through this administration. He created an incredible team of wonderful employees that have come to the city of Miami, that have dedicated themselves, that have had tremendous resumes to come here and help create a model for a city that is dealing with climatic issues that is being looked at by the entire world, not by the United States, not by the state of Florida, but by the world as a leader in resiliency and in adaptation. And so I'm not saying that any of the concerns that you've expressed here are illegitimate or you don't have the right to express them. What I'm saying is, I think that first of all, it's inappropriate to even discuss these issues without the manager being present to defend himself. And secondly, I think if you look at the results, you may not like him, for example, going to Tallahassee, but he did come back from Tallahassee with a $7.5 million reimbursement from the state for FEMA monies that we were doing outstanding. So, I mean, if he takes a trip that's, maybe a $200 trip and brings back a $7.5 million check, I think that's a pretty good return on investment.
He didn't bring that, Mr. Mayor.
Right?
He didn't bring that, just like...
Just a minute, Commissioner, if we could one at a time, please. And I'll recognize you for sure.
Yeah, and please, because, I think you spoke for about an hour and 15 minutes. And so, again, you're entitled to your perspective. You can disagree with me as to whether or not he brought the check back or whether it was his efforts that brought the check back or not. I mean, it's a fact that he went to Tallahassee, and it's a fact that when he came back, the state reimbursed us for $7.5 million. Those are facts. I mean, whether it was based on his influence or not, based on his relationships or not, is open to debate, frankly. It's open, and you may not like it, and you may advise him that it's not advisable. We now have a former state senator as a commissioner, and I think he's going to do a phenomenal job helping us with Tallahassee, frankly. So we can send him up there. He's been up there many, many times, and I think he knows how to get around Tallahassee. And I trust his ability to help us in those matters. In terms of what time he gets up and what time he gets here and what time he leaves, I don't know. I don't monitor that. I don't follow him. I can tell you that when I call him, he picks up the phone or he returns the call relatively quickly. I can tell you that he has always been courteous and professional from the dais in all the things that he has done. Certainly there are times, I think this happens to all of us, where somebody will ask us a question on a particular item and we need to research it, or we need to ask someone, or we have a staff of 26 department directors and 4,500 employees, and so that's why everyone has a specific role and a specific expertise. I don't think that any manager knows every single department to a level of expertise and depth that would obviate the need for a department director. So I think this action is not appropriate. I don't agree with the action. I certainly don't think it's well timed. And I don't think, frankly, that there's been an escalation of issues that have been brought before this commission to the manager that would justify this.
Commissioner Reyes, you recognize.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's not because I want to start an argument with you or anything, but we have to get the record straight, you see, about among the top highlights that I have of the achievement by the manager. There's one that says top 5 fastest growing city in the U.S. What measure, what action did the manager take to claim that is an achievement? Number 1 city in the U.S. for small business growth, according to Forbes. What was the initiative taken by him? I mean, the lower millage rate, it is because we are in a construction boom but not because of them. It is because the city, it is now the demand for new permits, the tax base have been increasing. I mean, it is impossible from an economic standpoint that in 2 years you are going to create a construction boom, or that you are going to create $3 billion in new construction. That is impossible. That is not one of those. This highlights these achievements that have been you're crediting the administration and the manager. You see, let's be fair. Let's be fair. I mean, even let's say okay that he said we have $2 million added to reserve. Okay, granted, I can give him that. But the problem is, my problem has been lack of communication. The directives have not been followed, and that answers that I have always gotten. They are, I think it's a total lack of respect. Like if I were somebody that I don't know what I'm doing, you see? And that is I mean, it's very simple. Let's take it to a vote. If want to keep it, keep it. But we have to send a message. This has to stop, and we have to take a direction. And everybody that sits in this stairs deserve the respect because we have been elected by the people. You see, and the manager works for the commission, and is paid by the people, and all his staff is paid by the people. See, and also another message that I want to send: we legislate. The administration doesn't legislate. We are the legislative body. Okay, and that is something that I have been complaining about it, and this gotta stop. And if you plan to legislate before you try it, you can suggest legislation and come to every one of us and let us know what legislation is going to be, how it's going to affect us, how it's going to affect the people, and let us make a decision. But don't bring the legislation already cooked.
And Mr. Chair, if I may just
Mr. Mayor, of course.
Look, again, you're completely entitled to your perspective, and obviously you're upset or unhappy with what you feel are some issues, and again, you have every right to express your concerns. I would argue that when you focus on creating a government that is easy to work with, and that's what we've been focusing on. And I'm not saying that we're there, but we're focusing on it. That's what's going to make you excel in being ranked in small businesses. For example, one of the initiatives was eStart, and we're working towards being able to create a business in the city of Miami from your cell phone. I think that's something that's a significant initiative that will help us become easy and number one in small business in the U.S. I think these are statistics that you should highlight if you're the manager, or if you're the mayor, or if you're a commissioner, frankly. I think if somebody is looking at your government or your city and saying that you're number one in the nation in small business, I think that's something that you should tout, and I think it's a reflective of the government that you have. I think when you have historically low homicide rates, when you have a historically low tax rate, you're gonna grow in population, right? Those are ingredients for population growth, right? We're number 5 in population growth. I think that's a phenomenal statistic. Some people don't like that statistic, by the way. There's some people that think we're growing too fast or maybe growing too much, and it's something that we can obviously talk about. The construction boom, we are in a construction boom, but we just did $3 billion of construction last year alone. That was just last year's construction. So that was 1 year's worth of construction. That was $3 billion. So, I mean, again, we can debate about these statistics. I think it's all of our jobs, frankly, to collectively tell a good story for the city so that our citizens know. Okay.
Commissioner Carollo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And Mr. Mayor, we're all entitled to our opinions, and I respect yours. Obviously, like he's said many times, you're his only boss. He says you're his boss, he don't look at us that way. But I could go point by point of every of the so-called accomplishments that you claim he's made to show that it's got nothing to do with any of it. The one area that I do want to touch upon is that it's not appropriate. Well, since September, I've been trying to deal with this. Last 2 months, for one reason or another, he was not in Tallahassee, he had to leave, he was unavailable, so he wasn't here, and I couldn't deal with it. You do not have to have the city manager present when you have the sort of evidence that I presented that in any small, medium, or large American city, if any elected official would have done what he did with those permits, the fashion that he did, least of all, city manager, they'd be out the door. Out the door. Now, he could deal with that in any other way that he wanted, but the fact that you're trying to say that he has to be here, and it's not appropriate, it is appropriate because he knows this has been coming for some time. Now, you mentioned one other thing, and I don't want to go point by point because we'll prolong this even more. But you did mention one, and you don't know of anything that has tried to escalate this. Well, I did mention some on invitations that I never got for activities in my own district. At the same time, I'm going to give you one that I really have found disturbing. This happened right after the election. The Sergeant of Arms. Why would any Sergeant of Arms, or any of us, would have to be questioned as to why did they spend more time with us, Matt, and where were we, and so on. And quite a few Sergeant of Arms all of a sudden have gone through that. Commissioner Hartman, got 2 years to see what he's got to say. Some of the others here. When you talk about not escalating, listen, I've come from different worlds, and one of them was law enforcement too. And I know when someone is playing that game, what they're trying to do, and that they're running scared. I don't want to get into here a lot of stuff that I could get into it. We want to get into Sergeant of Arms, SIS doing security, having patrol cars given a watch that at least twice during their shift they have to go by certain places or anything. That's not my intention. And more. That's why I find it so outrageous that this has been going on. And I would find it extremely surprising if the manager had no knowledge about any of that been going on. In fact, I remember after the strong mayor election, within 2 days, he meets with me in my office where we met for a few minutes today there at my little round table. And he's bragging to me how he had become your advisor. That he was advising you not to get into anything big anymore, that you had to win small things. And this is what he was going to advise you to do and steer you and so on. And you know what? I don't know if he did or not. It's between you and him. But what that told me is that this guy had no business being a city manager. He was being a politician, just like he's shown in it. You put the city television station. There ain't a day that you're not going to find him all over the place. Why is the manager being involved in all that instead of doing work for the city? When you did a press conference the other day in Little Havana, announcing the rental assistance that we're going to be doing, I speak to all those people afterward. I wish you could have been there. They're all complaining to me that they can't even go out because of all the drug pushers, the crime that we're having in the area. They were petrified. It's great that we have the lowest homicide rate in whatever amount of years. But it's also great that in the past years, we've had probably the best trauma center in the whole world in Jackson Memorial. That's kept a lot of people that have been shot in your neighborhoods, in my neighborhood, from dying. So that's brought the homicide rate low. And I could go into other reasons why that happens. Not the least, that that's been the trend throughout most of the United States. And those are trends that happen. Just like when they start going up, sometimes they go up for everybody. There are others that I won't get into because I don't want to get into other areas. But look, I do believe that the main reason that there has been more divisions than the normal between the elected officials has been the city manager. And I believe it's happened because it's been to his advantage to have elected officials having major difference with one another, because that means that he's going to survive a lot longer and get away with it. And this is what's been happening. And this is why I put, besides all the reasons that I stated and more that I have, a lot more, the motion to fire him. Because I think this city has truly been harmed by this individual. We have not moved forward in any of the ways that we should have in the last 2 years. And at the same time, he's taken advantage of putting one against the other back and forth. You know, if I ever had any doubt what the swamp meant, I know what the swamp means now. And if we would have bothered to have looked a little deeper, like we should have, and not just gone ahead blindly, voted for him to come on board. I was the only vote that said no, and I said not because of him, because I didn't know the man. I voted against him because I felt we should have had a national search. And I believe that that should be part of the charter, that this commission today, tomorrow, 20 years from now, should select its managers through a national search and trying to get the best professional that we can. Not an individual is going to be a political hack. But you would have looked deeper when he was the airport director. What was reported at the time, I believe the Miami Herald, you have more access with them than I do on any given day, was that the man, as director of our airport, had 2 dolls in his office. One was a doll of Hillary Clinton in prison garb. The other was the doll of Donald Trump. Now, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Anyone that works for government simply should not have anything like that, as was reported in the papers. Furthermore, it was an old honky-dory with him at the airport. I could tell you that I was in, and happened to have just been there that day, in Mayor Jimenez's office one afternoon, that when he heard certain things that his director at the airport, Emilio Gonzalez, had done, I've never seen Mayor Jimenez get so upset like he did. And in fact, before he decided to resign to come over here, Mayor Jimenez took all the procurement ability that he had in the airport. When you take that from your airport director, it's a sign that you don't trust him whatsoever. He was lucky that he found in Jimenez a kinder heart that would not have fired him at the same time and figure that after he did that, he would leave it his own so he would have to fire him. I would have been there, I would have fired him. And I think many other people would have too. So, this guy doesn't come from, squeaky, clean, wonderful background. Read some of the other stuff that are out there on him. But that's the past. What I'm basing everything on is my experience with him here, what I've seen, and I don't believe he's going to change at all in one bit. The same work ethics that he's shown here in the city, were the same work ethics that I was told by county employees that he had when he was at the airport. Everybody in this city, beginning with you, know that this guy doesn't work that much. The guy that has to do all the work is Mr. Napoli here. The same thing happened at the airport and the other assistant managers. How many times have I questioned him on the budget and other pertinent matters that a manager that's on top of his game, like any manager should be, should have the answers, and he simply didn't know anything. And then trying to get others in the administration to answer for him because he's not involved. He's too busy trying to get, the selfies so that he can put them up every day. And of course, most are during city time too, what he's being paid by us. Or trying to meet with this counselor, that counselor. It's great, the life of the rich and famous. Now, I also would say this to you. He has the option, because that's the other thing that he's been looking to get out of the city, as much free publicity as he can in our dime, so that at some time in the future he could run for office. Well, heck, he lives in my district. Not in the port part of my district, but he lives in my district. I don't mind. He could come and run 2 years from now. In fact, if he did, that would be the sure way that I would run again and not go to Shangri-La.
Thank you, Commissioner Carollo. Anyone else from the dais that would like to speak on this issue? Now we're going to open for public comment. Does anyone from the public would like to speak on this motion that has been moved and seconded? According to our charter, there is a 4/5 threshold to successfully pass an item such as this. So I'll open.
Three. There's three.
Item
The
4.
mayor could veto.
Pardon, please, gentlemen.
Be dealt with.
Gentlemen. Item 4G6 of the Charter, additionally, the City Commission, by a 4/5 vote of those City Commissioners then in office, shall be able to remove the City Manager. 4/5 vote. But we need to make sure, and I'm welcome for clarification, because these are not the type of things we want to get wrong.
It's four votes when the commission removes. It's 3 votes if the mayor removes, and then the commission ratifies. So that's what you're remembering on the 3 votes.
Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on this item? All right. Is there any further discussion from the dais?
I just want to say very quickly that, in my view, it's just a lack of due process in the way that we went about doing this. And the reason I say that is because we started this off with a discussion about code violations, or rather, permitting processes, and how a permitting process at a certain residence amounted to wrongdoing. And that may be true. I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't had an opportunity to really test any of the evidence that was presented before us, but neither has the person that was accused of the violation. And so, anytime someone is accused of something, I personally believe that they should have an opportunity to respond, not necessarily in words, but through the process that's created for them to respond. So, if in fact there is some allegation that there was some wrongdoing within the permitting process, there's probably a remedy that most likely doesn't involve this board. And it's unfortunate for any of us, be it a city manager, be it a city commissioner, or anyone holding any other position of trust,
when we have to hash out the details of private things, in the public. And I think that's probably one of the biggest downfalls of being someone who is in the public life. And so, in regard to making a decision to remove our manager because of that, I couldn't support that. I just not yet, at least. I mean, there would at least have to be something more than what was presented today, how it was presented today. It is unfortunate that the manager is not here even to face the accusation. I'm sure someone probably contacted him and he's on his cell phone or on his laptop watching this online, and when he should be tending to his wife, right? His wife is going through something that's very personal to them. That's the best way to put it. And so, his attention should be there and not here. Even though this is an important day for all of us to be here, it's an important day for the city of Miami. That's why he has a good team, because none of us, not any one of us sitting here, our clerk or our city attorney, could do this without a good team. And so, this is a very serious thing that I'm no stranger to. I mean, I've made a motion to remove a manager before, and I did it because of what I perceived that manager's behavior was towards his employees, how he treated people that work for him, and it led to a long discussion, passionate discussion, and also I removed that motion. I didn't seek furtherance of it, but I would say that before I made that motion, I had many experiences with that manager that I didn't perceive to be pleasant, and things were difficult, I would say. And after that motion, after our exchange of words with each other in private, he was a better manager to me. And I'm not saying this because of his motion. I'm saying it maybe because he put forth better effort. And so, I think if this is about the effort that our manager takes to please each of us in our offices, I think the message is very loud and clear that he needs to make a greater effort. I don't have the same issues that you all have with our manager, and I would say in regard to other things that you said, Commissioner, um, regarding like sergeant at arms and such. I have a very good and close person to me that once said to me that I wouldn't ride with the sergeant at arms if I were you. And I said, why? He said, well, basically that who likes being detained all the time? And so the idea that we have individuals in law enforcement that are taking us from city business to city business is it's like a rose, if you will. It's beautiful, but it's thorny. And it always goes to wonder who they work for, right? And these are members of law enforcement who are typically those who have had some experience in SIS. They have been through many departments within Miami Police Department. They know how not to be seen. They know a number of things, but the most important, I think, duty they have is to protect us as elected officials. And I would say here on the record that no elected official in the city of Miami is greater than another, no matter if you're elected by district or by a city. We are all equal in that. We are all supposed to be protected with the same vigor. And many of us have faced physical threats here in the city of Miami. And so it was the sergeant at arms that helped guide us through those processes that led to our safety, even if it meant the arrest of individuals. And so it's troubling to me to hear when a sergeant at arms may be questioned about the whereabouts of a commissioner. So I would say that to you. And I would like to know whether or not it comes from our city manager's office. And I think that's a very important question to answer because we are all very, well, um, we know that we use our sergeant at arms for city business. And in this sort of business, there's always something. If you look at our schedules, there's always something going on. And there's never a day that I step outside when I'm interacting with the public that I'm not the commissioner. And so I'm always bombarded with questions regarding our city, and we have events, and we have meetings, and we have things that go from here to there. And so our sergeant at arms is usually not someone who's describing our daily activity to anyone. I would never expect our sergeant at arms to do that or share that with anyone. And so, as in my experience, when a sergeant at arms or anyone is being questioned about the whereabouts of a person, is because they are they're under some sort of investigation. Someone's collecting details in order to cause a harm to that person or to bring about a process that that person may have to go through. And so, I think these are very serious things that you described. And I'm one of those people that believes that things may be strange or may happen strangely on the day, but I don't always think that the things that happen on the days are wrong. Some things are very right. The things that are said here are spot on. And sometimes we hear about things on the days that can that can cause like the hairs on your back for us men to raise. And so there's some things that we certainly need to figure out, to ask and get some questions answered. But the question, which is the motion to remove the city manager today, I don't believe is one of those things.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartman. Further discussion? Welcome to your first day on the job, Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla. It's like this every week. I've been inspired by a lot of the things you said in your swearing-in speech and the years of experience you brought. These are certainly not new things for you to see such conflicts politically, personally, administratively. I'd love to hear from your experience some concepts and ideas on this, because for me, well, if you have anything to contribute. Clearly you have a vote. Is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's my first day on the job, as you noted. I haven't had an experience with a city manager. My first day here. I had heard over the months of other elected officials who've had bad experiences with him on this dais. I think the environment here is toxic. I think we need to move our city forward. I think we need a new start. We care about Miami, about its future. I think Miami and its future is bigger than any one man. I'm going to vote yes.
Commissioner Hardeman, this isn't the first time I've faced this issue before as well under a previous manager. And a couple times we did. I wouldn't wish having 5 bosses on anyone. 6 bosses. It's a very difficult system. Me coming from a business perspective, it's untenable to serve so many. It makes it more of a political job than an administrative job. Most of the things that I heard today were political and personal, but some were legal. Some of the things that you brought up are legal and not unserious. They are important. I would like to start by saying that I've never had an unprofessional moment with the city manager. He's always been prompt with me. He's always been courteous, and the team he has put in place has been his saving grace up to now. Because I believe a lot of the problems that you're seeing, and I recognize the frustration, Commissioner Carollo, it's been for a very long time. I see you as a commissioner unhappy. Unhappy for your district, for your residents, for the businesses in your district, and for the process. This isn't a surprise that you bring this. So I'm not surprised that we are here today. And I know you bring this from a sincere place. Whether it's personal, political, administrative, or legal. The city needs to be stable, and we're not. Can we ever be under this system of government the way we are, where a manager serves 5 commissioners and a mayor? It's hard to say. You have been a manager, you have been a mayor, and that probably leads you to your conclusion sooner than others. I do believe everyone has different management styles. And the management style of our current city manager has at times been frustrating. I understand where you're coming from. Because he's a delegator. There's not a lot of detail in the moment, like you said. But that's where, as a manager, you can be a successful manager if you surround yourself by those who are, as I say for my own self, I recognize my faults and I fill in those gaps with the people around me. And he's certainly done that with a stellar team. So, where you may have been a very detail-oriented, hands-on manager, we have a manager who is more of a delegator. And I'll admit I have found that frustrating as well. There are definitely initiatives that have been put in place from this dais that have not been completed. There have been directions that have not been done. And so for that puts me in a position of empathy with your frustration in that sense. What Commissioner Hardeman has said is very true with regard to process. I have a very difficult time with this vote in this moment for a very specific reason, that the person being accused is not even here to defend himself. And for very grave reasons. He's with his wife, and if you know what she is going through, we're not talking about a cold here. And so there is no other reason that he's not here. I guarantee you he would be here to defend himself if it weren't for such a serious situation at home. And before Christmas at that. But all of that aside, I'm most concerned by the legal accusation. This is an accusation of fraud for the application of a permit. I have not had the ability to. I've never heard that before. I don't know any of those details in their facts, and I was trying to follow along, that's why I asked you a few questions. That sort of an investigation to see whether true fraud has been committed or not can be ascertained by various bodies. And that sort of an opinion, and that's ironclad, because if fraud was committed, there we have that's not about opinion, that's not about politics, that's not about personalities. And so for my part, I wouldn't fire someone over their management style unless it damaged the city. I wouldn't fire someone over politics or personality, even if someone I just didn't get along with or didn't like them, but they were doing their job, I wouldn't fire them for that. But this accusation is very serious, and however, I don't have the tools before me to follow through on that investigation. So I don't believe that I can vote to remove the city manager today. But I will say this city needs stability moving forward. We need to be a team up here that's not against the team working for us and this city. Because the team behind this wall that's serving us is really serving the city, and so are we. And it should not be an adversarial position. So if we cannot solve this adversarial position, we can't continue long term, whether it's 4/5, 3/5, whatever it is, we're going to be a mess. The city of Miami has to be the greatest city in our country, and we can only move forward with some sense of unity, with some sense of common goal. I'm very optimistic about this day. I really believe whatever our differences, personally, politically, or otherwise, I wasn't going to say age.
Yeah, I know you have it for me. You know.
But let me finish.
I know.
Sorry, a moment of levity, but I really am optimistic, honestly, for the city, for us, under this mayor, under this manager, if it's him. I really believe we can make it. I know he can do better. For you, for me, for anyone in this body. But I don't believe today's the day.
Okay, can I say something?
You're recognized.
Okay. You see, I heard and I was a little hesitant at the beginning, and I jumped in when I heard it because I have very, very strong arguments and very strong reasons to second this motion. But the only thing that I want to clarify is that you and Commissioner Hardeman are claiming that this is not right, and so the mayor, because the manager is not here. Well, we have a motion, and we have a second. We have argued this motion. The only thing that we haven't heard is from the manager. And if my fellow commissioners agree, can we delay the vote until he comes and sits there and defends himself? So that excuse is thrown out. Can we do that, Madam City Attorney?
You could do whatever you want as a commission, obviously.
I don't know if the proponent of will agree, or we continue this. But one thing that is sure, I do agree 100% with Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla that the atmosphere sucks. There is a constant confrontation between votes, and I have witnesses. It's a constant confrontation between my office and some of the administration. And the manager never shows up. And yes. It's whatever you tell him, yes. And then nothing is done. Directives that are given not because of capriciousness, not because I want to do something because they are needed and will help the city of Miami. They are not followed. So I don't know if we can take the vote or if we could use as the manager to be here and then the motion is there, the second is there, and then we vote. I don't know. Because by needing 4 votes, it seems like we won't be able to see it. But maybe.
So, Commissioner Reyes, by the tea leaves, this would fail on a 3-2. But your potential recommendation is a subsidiary motion to defer.
No, I'm just
Did
asking
I
questions.
misunderstand?
I am asking
That's why I
questions.
said potential, because that is an option for you. If you would like to propose a subsidiary motion to defer, and there was a second to that and a vote, this would hold. Otherwise,
And it all depends. It all
take a
depends
vote.
if the person that made the motion was Commissioner Croy.
Of course.
And I
that
want
would
to
be a
know
vote.
how my fellow commissioners feel.
So that would be a vote, or we take the vote, because that Commissioner Carollo is here to have his day. I mean, he's waited a very long time for this, and if he would like his vote, he deserves it. But I believe he sees where it's going at the moment. But I think you feel an empathy from your fellow commissioners here of your frustration and a willingness for the city to move forward.
You know where,
in the motion that you made, of course, and yours is a second.
you know where the frustration really lies? In seeing how my residents in District 3 are being punished because the city manager and his key people don't like one of their bosses saying the truth to them, standing up to them. But I want to thank you, Commissioner, even though at this point in time you're no vote. I want to thank you for giving a very thinking, intelligent speech and balance. You know I want to work with you, just like I know you want to work with me. And we need to accomplish great things for this city just this coming year alone. We've been truly at a standstill with all major projects the last 2 years. I don't care how much they want to sugarcoat it. We all know that this city has been at a major standstill with so many things that we need to do, not the least housing. But again, I thank you for being lost in your response and your answer. But truly, out of everything that everyone has said here, including me, the one sentence that stood out to me, that really said it all, was by the newest kid on the block. When he immediately gave a sense of what he's seen here, the toxic atmosphere that we're living in. No matter what you want to say, you cannot move a city forward with a guy that wants to be front, center, right, left. He wants to be everything, except put a full week's work. Now, to give you an example of what's wrong with our city, I'm having backflashes of when we had a former police chief that then became a city manager down Warsaw here. And he didn't care what he'd have to do to hold on to power. And I came out and I stated what he had done. Of course, by some I was accused that I was a crazy man. It's not so. But then the FBI came and took him away in handcuffs. I remember the meeting that he was fired in. And I remember seeing the same thing I'm seeing here today. The military branch, those within the military branch that benefited from Warsaw, all around here. This picture that I'm seeing here and I've been seeing here, This is toxic. We shouldn't have our top brass in the city, from the police chief, the assistant chief, and others, be hanging around there in that fashion. That just sends such a bad message. And it just reinforces what I'm saying that has been going on in here. You know, you talk about our lives that are equal. Commissioner, I believe your life is worth as much as mine, and mine is worth as much as yours. And every one of us has lives that are equal, just like any one of our residents. But none of us, or all of us, have not been handled in the same fashion. My life is worth a lot less than some others' lives here. When allegations were made at the potential harm to me, that included a potential, supposedly, Venezuelan hit team that was looking for me. I don't know if it's true or not. You know, I wasn't a great believer of it, but those were real allegations that came to me. I wasn't treated in the same way, nor was there the same concern as has been given to others. The one thing that, and I'm glad that you saw the seriousness of what I brought here, Commissioner, because it is serious. The one thing that I left out was, that shows you that there indeed was something to hide, was that after our city manager had been living in that house about 20 years, almost, only after he filed this application in the way that he did, and I have a pretty good idea of why he did that the way he did, he then went, when he could have done it 20 years back at any time, to the property appraiser's office to use his military rank in service to black out any information that anybody could get on aerial pictures or anything on his home. He has a right to do that, like I do, as a former law enforcement officer, and I haven't done it. I probably should. But the fact that he did it then, right after this, was telling. That he was trying to hide fully what I described here. Now, it's fine to say that, well, we let the process go and everything else, but do you really think that anybody in our administration is going to look at this? I mean, it's like asking the fox to check the hens, make sure they're safe and okay. So, the only way would be for this body to exercise subpoena powers. And let's bring all these employees, let's go through the whole process with subpoena power, with people under oath. Let's get to the bottom of this, which to me is very clear what's happened. I mean, you heard the number 2 man in the building department before he knew, or maybe he started wondering or knowing after he saw some pictures and he heard about the deck and so on. But you heard the answers that he gave. You needed surveys, you needed to do a whole process that wasn't followed here whatsoever. An hour and 23 minutes, and 6 departments signed off on everything. Nothing was needed for this man. Now, I'm going to be frank with my fellow colleagues. I don't even feel safe in my own city anymore. You know, Little Havana, all of a sudden, in the tourist area, I don't know where they came from, but we have been invaded with drug gangs. And it's not your typical drug gangs that you'll see in Liberty City, Overtown, Alapata, other areas. These are mainly elderly looking men, um, women that are strung in crack cocaine, that are sellers and users, and everybody's on bikes. Riding bikes in the sidewalk, hitting tourists, hitting local residents. It's against the law, but nobody does anything about it. The only person that's gotten a ticket related to bikes was my wife, and she was driving a car, and the police officer said she made a left turn, or whatever turn, going against traffic, but she wasn't, with a bike, because that's what they put in the statute, but she was riding a car. And of course, the judge threw it out, and the other tickets, just like mine, were thrown out within a few weeks apart. Any other manager, when I brought those stories out some meetings ago, would have looked into it. This manager, he didn't care. He did not care. And this is why we have a toxic situation. I started as a 24-year-old young man. I'm not a young man anymore. And never in my life with the history, with the history of the city of Miami, either being up here or as someone watching from the outside, have I seen the situation that we're going through now, where a manager wants to run this city almost in a militarized fashion with an ironclad hand. Don't you think, Mr. Chairman, that you have the same right as any resident that's sitting out here or at home or anywhere in our city to ask questions of your directors, other top employees, to help your residents when your residents are calling you for help, which is why they elected you? Well, we are allowed to do that. Our manager gave orders for no department director, no one, to be able to speak to us directly. We had to go through him to make a process never ending in some cases, and for some commissioners, in being able to assist our residents. Welcome.
I'm sorry, I couldn't capture your question on the record.
What was the reason that he gave for that? You know what?
He threatened with the charter. And I've never seen a manager threaten any elected official without permission of the charter. I haven't. In fact, when I was manager, I let him know right off the bat, I wasn't going to play with that provision of the charter, that most of our cities, at least down here, have a similar provision. Just might be a little different than the other, but bottom line is the same. What we cannot do, and rightly so, is give orders in the system to employees. By God, that we can't ask questions to get information, and then he puts you in a situation that you're even concerned of asking legitimate questions to help your constituency, because someone might lie and say that you gave him an order. Or you have to file the public gave him an order. Or you have to file the public record list. Now, Mr. Mayor, I want you to understand this. I want you to understand this, Mr. Deputy Manager and Chief. I want you to understand this. If I or my family are going to be targeted in any way by any part of this city, I assure you, I'll spend the last penny that I have, and unfortunately I'm going to have to sue the city and go after any other people that I feel are involved. And I'll do whatever it takes. So please understand that.
Sir, that's very clear. And the chief is not here. He was here because you were mentioning some issues about the police, and I think he'd just like to mention a couple of responses. We can wait till after. But
if a response is needed, Commissioner, I really appreciate the way that all has been handled today. Nothing has been inappropriate, illegal, unethical, or out of order. You are right. This body has the right to investigate, to ask questions, even if we want to go that route towards subpoena, etc. There are other bodies outside of the city, a third party, if you wanted to go that route, which could also be appropriate, whether it's the Commission on Ethics. There is a potential misdemeanor with the fraud accusation. That's the state attorney's office. But really, you see where the votes are here today. The ball is in your court whether you would like to vote, defer, or withdraw.
I, for one, would like for the vote to go forward.
On the record.
I've learned something in life, Commissioner. That is that cowards die 1,000 times. If you're brave, you only die once. So, I'm not a coward. I would never be a coward in my life. And just because I would not be in the prevailing side, I think that this motion is a valid motion. I think anybody that's been listening sees the seriousness of what we brought from the beginning. That's why I brought that out first. And if this city is going to have the opportunity for real stability, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have differences. We have difference of opinions, but I'm talking about stability moving forward. Then we need to bring a real professional city manager. And I don't care where we get them from. It could be from any of the four corners of our country. It could be from our own backyard if we have them there. But we have to do an appropriate national search, real transparent, where we really go into the background of the people that we're going to be able to have the mayor choose from, since he's the one that gets to pick the first one. We approve it or not afterwards. But give him that opportunity to look from there, so that people in Miami know that we didn't just put a political hack there for whatever reason. That we're putting a real professional. Otherwise, why have a manager form of government? Now, Miamians voted, 65% of us, that he wanted a strong mayor. So we have a manager form of government. That's how they look at it. But I think Miamians want a professional manager. Now, you talk about other departments and so on. Well, because we've had a politician for a manager, he spent so much time in Tallahassee with key politicians up there promoting himself, and he's still thinking that he's in the running for president of Miami-Dade. And he might very well be. But I don't know if we can get the state to come in, because I don't know if he might be able to get someone to run interference with that. I don't know. I don't know what other context he has in other places, but I will tell you this. In open days for everybody to see and hear, giving subpoenas to our employees and making them know that, look, we just won the truth through this whole process. How it went, who told you what, who asked you to do this or the other. You're going to be surprised what you're going to find. Obviously, when you have the city manager, that's God. He's got all the power in the world, in the military with him. He's going to intimidate a lot of employees. And I guarantee you they're intimidated. And that's part of what really just rung in my ears when Commissioner Della Portilla talked about the toxic atmosphere that we have.
Thank you. I'd like to bring this to a close and call the question. Is there any final comments anyone would like to make before we vote? Mr. Clerk, if you could call the vote, please. And I'm sorry, there is no public comment. Nobody here would like to comment publicly. I want to make sure I give full, ample opportunity for anyone who would like their 2 minutes. All right, closing public comment. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call on the motion to dismiss the city manager. Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
Commissioner Carollo.
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla. Commissioner Hardeman.
Against.
Chair Russell.
No.
The motion fails 3-2.
Thank you very much. I need a 10-minute recess. Thank you.